Good morning, everyone. Welcome to an episode of Coffee Break with Carl, Laura del Cafecito's new sister show. My name is Lourdes Quinones, and I would like to welcome you to the show. So come on in, sign in on the comment section below, and let us know if you're drinking a cup of coffee with us this morning. We'd love to say hello to you. Coffee Break with Card is a program dedicated to all those in our community who are living with autism, to their family members, and to all those who support them. All right. So today we have the pleasure of having a colleague of ours join us for the show. So welcome, Beverly. We'd love to have you today. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So anyway, like in today's program, we will be discussing the the topic of potty training. Okay, so this is an important topic that I know a lot of our parents, whether they and caregivers, whether they are early childhood ages or even the adult ages, sometimes we're still dealing with some of this potty training. So we have the pleasure of having Beverly King, who is an expert in the area of potty training. So. So thank you for joining us today. Okay. So
Thank you for having me.
Great. So before we get started, I'd like to start by introducing to you our coffee break hostesses for today. As I mentioned before, my name is Lourdes Quinones, and I am a CARD consultant assigned to the primary age group. And professionally, I am a pediatric physical therapist as well as a special education teacher. I am joined by my colleagues, Jasmine Castellano. Buenos dias, Jasmine.
Buenos dias. Good morning, everyone.
And Olivia McDonald. Buenos dias, Olivia.
Buenos dias. Good morning. It's good to see you, Lourdes, after all the technical issues.
Oh my God, yes. I've had a morning. I'm still dealing with some Wi-Fi issues, but hopefully we'll make it through the program with no major problems. All right. And I'm also wanted to introduce to you our other colleague, Olivia McDonald. Buenos dias, Olivia. And as you know, Jasmine Castellano is an excellent professional in the field of mental health. She is a CARD consultant assigned to the age group of middle school to young adults. And she's the mother of 3, one of whom is diagnosed with autism. So welcome, Jasmine.
Thank you, Lourdes.
All right. Olivia McDonald is an excellent professional in the field of public health. She's a CARD consultant assigned to the primary age group, just like me. And Olivia is the mother of a beautiful little baby boy, and she has a younger brother diagnosed with autism. So welcome, Olivia.
Thank you, Lourdes.
Okay, so before we get started, we want to review the rules by which we want to adhere during this programming to ensure a safe environment for all of us. So remember to please keep an open mind and maintain a positive attitude. And also remember to use respectful language. All right. So again, before we get started, Olivia, would you let us know if we have someone or many people to say hello to?
Yes. I want to say good morning to Betty, our colleague Chris.
Good morning.
And and I know she said she was going to join, but it's still funny to always when she shows up. My mom, Philomena. Good morning, Mom.
Yes, number 1 fan. I think she and Chris are competing for that spot. Anyway. So anyway, so alrighty. So thank you for being here again. As you come in, if you're just joining us, be sure to sign in on the comment section. Leave us your comments, your questions, and we'll try to answer them live while we are on the show. And if not live, we'll do it again. We'll answer you after the show on the comment section. All right. So for those of you who are just joining us in today's program, we have the pleasure of interviewing Beverly King. She is a former CARD-USF consultant, and she will be discussing with us why potty training can be especially challenging for children with autism and what are the common mistakes to avoid when potty training, as well as answering questions submitted by our families prior to and during the programming. So join us. We have a lot to talk about. Okay. Don't forget to leave us your questions and comments as we go on the show. All right. So I'll start with the first question for you, Beverly. Again, welcome. Thank you for joining us. And so my first question to you will be, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Again, my name is Beverly King, and I am also a mother of an adult daughter who is on the spectrum. I started my educational career after 13 years in the military. And while attending Albany State University, I worked as a regional coordinator for Parent to Parent of Georgia. And I served 52 counties there in Southwest Georgia with children who have disabilities or other health impairments. So it wasn't just autism, but it was like all disabilities. And we disseminated information on specific disabilities, resource information, and then one-on-one emotional support. I think Florida has one also. So once I completed my degree in special education, I became the lead teacher for a preschool classroom with children with autism. In addition, I worked in conjunction with the regular education teachers, speech and occupational therapists, school psychologists, early intervention service providers, as well as Head Start personnel as an educational consultant. So as preschool teachers, we had to kind of do both. And after that, I then worked, as Lourdes mentioned, I was a consultant for CARD, and during that time, I became the supervisor of the early age team. And that's about it.
Awesome, Beverly.
Yes.
So, Beverly, can you explain to us why can potty training be particularly challenging for children with autism?
Sure. One of the barriers to toilet training for a child with autism are the sensory differences that the child may be experiencing. One of the most common is the sound of the flushing toilet in the bathroom. It could also be sitting on the toilet because it could be cold. It has a hole in it and the child might fear falling in. It could also be sitting on the toilet. I just said that. It could be also that they can't feel their feet touching the floor, and so they feel off balance or unstable. And then even sometimes like smells in the bathroom, and that could be like what we think of as good smells like soap and stuff like that can be overwhelming to them, and they may not want to go into the bathroom. Oftentimes a child may not be ready due to cognitive impairment. So before starting training, they should be able to stay dry for longer periods of time. And then also they will probably be grabbing their diaper when they do go. And sometimes you'll see them go to a different place to hide in order to go. And so those are kind of signs of, yeah, they're probably ready because they have the awareness there. Another reason is delays in language can also make it difficult for children to understand directions as well as expressing their need to go. This is where visual supports can come in handy. Changes in the routine can also be very challenging for children with autism, as most of us know that. So, I always say, just think they've been doing this probably for 2 to 3 years, and now you're trying to change things on them. And so another thing is what we call executive functioning skills. And those are necessary for the cognitive control of behavior. So this can include like attention, working memory, reasoning, and problem solving. So children with autism also have deficits in that area, and it can make toilet training very difficult due to the numerous steps that are involved to carry out this routine. So I always tell parents, like, when you think about toileting, there's so many steps. It's not just, okay, let's just go to the bathroom. You may have to pull the seat up or pull it down and get on the seat. So there's multiple steps that you have to think about and teach everyone.
That's a really great point. Like, Yeah, it's not until you have to break it down. Like if you were writing like a recipe, it's like go to the door, open it, turn on the light switch. Even like that's already 3 steps. So yeah.
Yes.
And I wanted to interject a little bit because I wanted to comment on a couple of things that you said, Beverly. We mentioned some of the some of the stuff that you mentioned. It's typical development, so we have to remember that. We have to remember that developmentally, some of the hiding, the being ready. We have the controlling of, it's a control issue as well. So a lot of it also has to do with it's developmentally a phase that children go through, but then it also becomes prolonged in this case. And you mentioned as well the idea of breaking a routine. And I always say it's not a routine until it becomes a routine. And we know our individuals with autism are so strictlers for routine. So I always tell parents, don't give up, because you have to get in, start a new routine before, insist on that new routine before we can become a new routine, accept a new routine. So thank you for bringing those up. And I'll keep it there. So, because I know we have a lot of content.
So Beverly, I know you've helped many families with their potty training struggles. So based on your experience, what were the most common mistakes that you saw being made potty training more difficult?
So probably number one is not having the time involved to adequately carry out the training. So it's such a difficult test, like we have said, and it requires typically several weeks and sometimes even longer. And it's an all-day process. So, you can't think like, oh, I'm just going to try this in the morning and it worked. No, this has to be like an all-day training and over a course of time, depending on the child. And I typically recommend like doing this during like a summer break, and maybe one parent that's either on vacation or not working, or like a holiday, the longer holiday breaks like Christmas.
Mm-hmm.
And
this is where, the COVID-19, that was a lot of parents found that they had the time to do the trainings and overcame some of the obstacles prior to that. So that's a great point you're making.
Right. And then also, a lot of parents didn't try to incorporate visual strategies, and not doing that can, hinder them, I would say. So definitely, using what visual supports are available. And I know CARD has a lot of those. You just have to ask, and such as like a task analysis, a visual step by step of what they need to do. And then sometimes reading social stories or using an incentive chart. Sometimes those work and sometimes they don't, those incentive charts. But also having some kind of incentive for them. You know your child better than anybody else and what works for them. And then the last thing that I want to point out is like unintentionally creating a stressful situation, because if it's negative, they're probably not going to want to do it because they feel like it's a bad thing. So, if they're going to get in trouble for it, then, oh, I shouldn't be doing this. And they can be confused on what they're doing or not doing.
And that's one of the things I wanted to mention, Beverly. Also for the parents, it requires a lot of patience, and also not to take it personal. It's not that you're doing something wrong. It's not that you're not doing it right. It's not that you don't know how to do it. I had 3 kids, and my 2 previously, I trained them in a weekend. And for my little one, it took me years. So it's not that I didn't know what to do. So it requires a lot of patience, and it's frustrated. The process can be a little frustrated. So check with yourself, take a break, take a deep breath. Because if you create that environment and you show that frustration to your little one, that's not going to help. I mean, it's going to scare them, and then it will delay the process even more.
Yes.
So, Beverly, I have a question that was submitted to us by one of a mom of one of our constituents, and her son is 3.5 years old, and he started potty training at the beginning of the summer, and he's doing pretty well. But he's, since he's using the potty to pee and washing his hands and all that stuff, but he is holding on to his number two, to his poop, and for many hours, and is refusing to go potty for number two in the potty. So his mom says that he doesn't seem to have any sensory issues to the bathroom itself. But this is something that I know that a lot of parents, especially in the early childhood age range, they go through this. So what would you advise parents like her do, and for this case in particular?
Right. So typically this can be that they feel as if, I always say, like, they feel as if they're losing something, or that something's falling out of their body. And of course it is. But they're not used to that sensation, like when you sit on a toilet versus when it's in the diaper, it's not falling, right? And so sometimes it could be that, or if they maybe did it one time and the water splashed back up on them, that might have scared them, so they don't want to do it again. And then some of the things I would suggest for that is to use those social stories. And I know we had one at CARD. Where that is now, I couldn't tell you because I'm not there anymore. But I know also that you can find them. I think they even have ones that you can buy on Amazon and stuff now about that very topic, like, everybody poops, that kind of thing. I think that's what the name of a story is. But I would also recommend, like, when they do go in their diaper, then instead of just throwing it away, you dump that in the toilet and explain that, this is where it goes. So they realize, oh, it goes there, not in my diaper. So after a few times of doing that, that might help them as well.
How interesting. This is so wonderful that you're here to share this information with parents.
Yeah, very good suggestions. And also, Beverly, we have another mom from that also has a question. And she said that she has been successful in toilet training an 18-year-old with nonverbal autism. I mean, she's asking if you have been successful in toilet training an 18-year-old with nonverbal autism. She said that they have tried many methods, such as PECS and ABA. Requires prompting reminders to go use the toilet instead of going in pull up, or prefers going in the shower. So what would you say or recommend for that parent?
Okay, so just let me state up front, I personally have not worked with adults. I've only worked with younger children. But even with the students that I've taught, there have been some that I could only get to go with prompts, like verbal prompts or visual prompts. And this can be due to, like, cognitive deficits. So the only thing I would suggest maybe that might help is possibly having a timer set for ever so often, and teaching him, oh, the timer's off, let's go potty, right? And so that be either having a timer on a watch or a phone. If they use those things, then that might be something to prompt them to go on their own eventually.
Yeah. I know some families also use, like, their Alexas for kind of like that same idea of, like, oh, Alexa's telling us it's time to go to the bathroom.
I didn't even think about that. That's good. Yeah.
Yeah. That's a great idea.
I know one mom, in order to help support, because dad was having a hard time remembering to prompt. So it was Alexa to prompt dad to prompt the child.
Very cool.
But anyway, I did also want to briefly share a story This question reminded me of a story my mom told me about a special education teacher she knew. So he was attending an IEP meeting for a new student, and he was 17, autistic and nonverbal. And he asked the student's mother, like, what can I do to make a real impact? Like, how can I help your son? And mom said, to teach him to use the bathroom. And it took the teacher 3 weeks, but the student did eventually learn to use the bathroom. And I just bring this up because I know some of our parents here, their child might not be 3 or 4 years old anymore, or they have made multiple attempts in the past to potty train their child. And I just wanted to share that there is hope. In this particular student's case, he just really needed that intensive focus for more than just a few days. And he really needed that skill and building that skill to be supported at school too.
I love that.
Oops, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just
No,
going
go
to say
ahead.
it is really great when you can get the teachers on board, whether it be in their IEP or the teacher just willing to help. That does make a big impact.
And so I love that you brought that story, Olivia, because two things. Number one, it gives parents the hope that this can happen, regardless of the age. And if you're starting out and you're in the early age period right now, just to have a vision of how long this can go on if we don't address it. Okay, so it has a solution, right? And even at that age, they can learn it. So that, I think, is hope, right? That it says, okay, so they can learn. This is not going to be a lifetime thing. The other thing is either we address it now, or we are going to be changing diapers when they're older, right? And so I think that is a vision to maintain in the hope to continue. Why insist on this? Number one, especially at the early age period. So don't give up, number one. Number two, you have mentioned already a couple of times, Beverly, the executive function component of it. And I just want to insist on why that is. And number one, like you mentioned, it requires working memory, which means they have to remember what they have to do. Okay, that's what means about working memory. And we know that our students with autism, some of them, most of them, many of them, not all, I'm sure, but so let's say generally, they have issues with remembering that. Hence the reason for the visual supports. I just want to reiterate that point, because maybe if someone is watching this and is not understanding why we're saying social stories, why we're saying visual supports, maybe this particular point helps. So they have issues with that. Number two, there's inhibition. They have to stop thinking about what they like to think about, which is usually their subject interest area, right? That's part of that executive function. And then the third part and component of executive function is the cognitive fluidity, which means being able to be flexible and taking on a new concept. Okay. So these are the reasons, a little bit more further explain as to why visual supports are so important. So if you take anything home with you today, visual supports.
Yes. Sorry.
So another submitted question that we got was, do I need to commit a certain length of time for the training? I feel like it's not working, and so we'll wait until he's ready.
Okay, so I kind of touched on that earlier as far as what those readiness skills are. And so if they're doing any or one of those things, then they're ready. Whether you may not be ready, they are ready. But I mean, yes, the child needs to be ready, but the parent needs to be ready too. So you have to be committed to put in the time that it takes. And it's not easy, it's difficult, but it is so worth it in the long run. And I'm sure you know that, but it's really, it's a lot easier on the school system, while they're in school. and it's a lot easier on the parents if you can get it done. But definitely it takes time. And just like Yasmin said, it can take up to 2 years. But typically with the little ones, in my experience, usually at least 1 week, sometimes 3 weeks, if you're real diligent, you can get it done. And that was me being a teacher, but if you can have your teachers on board as well, or whoever is in their care, they may not go to school yet. Maybe they stay with grandma, but having everybody on board is the way it's going to work. So,
Yes.
Yeah. And I tell my parents not to give up. It might take, like in my case, it took years for mine. But there was other physical conditions that it will be, we discovered in the process. When we started potty training, we didn't know about those physical conditions.
Right.
So, but I will say that we don't know, maybe, you will have adults, and there's adults that I have never been able to be potty trained because of different reasons. However, one skill that he learns is one skill learned. So it's like, I would say to the parents, never give up. Keep on trying, little by little, little by little. One little tiny skill, it's a little bit closer. One less thing that we need.
Yeah, like they may have gotten the hand washing down. Great.
Exactly. And that's we celebrate that,
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
when we have kids with disabilities, it's not about the big picture, like with the neurotypical kids. Oh, my child made it, is potty trained. It's about every little tiny step that we were talking about, and every little tiny step is a celebration.
Yeah.
Probably the fact that he's holding the towel to dry their hands, things that we take for granted, but holding that towel is a big celebration because he wasn't able to do that before.
Yeah, talking about celebration, one of my parents had how she trained her daughter to go to the bathroom was they planned together a big party. It was a potty party. So they for a whole week or two, they camped outside the bathroom. They chose the balloons, they chose the cake. She involved the child in planning this big party. It's my party, and I know if I love it. You know what I mean? Anyway, so they would on a timer, they would hang out outside the bathroom, sort of like doing activities and all this stuff, and then they would go check in the bathroom, check in, and that practice and all that involvement of the child in the activity got the child ready to eventually go to the bathroom. And when she did, guess what? They cut the cake and they had the balloons. They did everything. So they had a party. Anyway, so that was great. So I do like that idea of celebrating the smaller things, and also to involve the child in picking the things. Because then again, the more they are involved, the more there's a buy-in to the activity and the books and all that. So my question to you now, it's another mother would like to know, how do you know when it's time to involve the professionals like ABA therapists or maybe doctors when facing the potty training challenges?
I've always said, even with any issue, if you have a therapist, definitely involve them in whatever you're doing, not just toilet training, but things that you want to work on that are going to help you in the home, right? And if you feel like you can't do it on your own, maybe it's a single parent and you need help, then that's when you can just, call in somebody else to help. Now, as far as the doctor, I've always told my parents, like, right up front, if, they're having issues going, if they're holding, like you said, holding their poop, getting constipated, that kind of thing, definitely seek out a doctor and make sure, you ask about things that it could be wrong. It could be something with their stomach, that's bothering them. And definitely if they're getting constipated, they need to see a doctor. I had one kid when I worked at CARD who was really difficult to train. And we thought, he's got the cognitive ability, but he just didn't want to go. And we ended up finding out that he had celiac disease. So that had some impact on that. So just, always check with your doctor if you think, if they're getting constipated a lot, or even the reverse, diarrhea, that kind of thing. Check with your doctor and have them tested for things like that. It's actually pretty common in a lot of our kids, I think.
Especially since we know that a lot of our students with autism, or children with autism or adults, they have issues with the feeding. So eating certain foods that may be constipating because they only eat that, right? Yeah. Maybe too much dairy, and they may be intolerant perhaps, or they don't drink enough water, things like that, which may be causing the constipation as well. So great point. That was a great point.
And it can become like a negative cycle. Like, I guess that's what I would say is like intervene. Like if you start seeing it, intervene quickly, because it can just become an issue where it's just like years and years and years of this becoming a kind of like a permanent problem.
Right.
All right, Jasmine.
And Beverly, is there anything else you would like to share with our audience?
The only thing I would say is if you haven't watched the training, the full toilet training that CARD has up on the YouTube channel, definitely do that first. And contact them about any resources they can help you with as far as the visuals and that thing as well. But also just, make your plan, set out that dedicated time, and make sure you have all your supplies and supports ready and available. I always tell parents to have like a basket in the bathroom of items such as toys, books, or coloring books that are only available while they're sitting in the bathroom. And if they really focus on like a character, whether it be I don't know what the thing is now, but in like I always Sonic the Hedgehog with my kids, right? So I don't know what kids are into these days, but if they have a favorite character, then definitely use those items, whether it be stickers or, like I said, coloring books, that kind of thing. So while they're sitting on the toilet, then they can, be coloring at the same time, that kind of thing. And then also the other thing, which, all CARD stuff is up on YouTube, but also if you just type in like toilet training, a ton of things will come up, and there will be like little cartoon videos that the kids would probably enjoy watching that explain toilet training and, why we go to the bathroom, that kind of thing. So you can probably find a lot of things on there as well.
Yep, exactly.
I did give an example, but I don't know how to put that into.
Well, I'm going to share the link.
Yeah, and that's the thing with YouTube. Developmentally appropriate videos are available. Social stories in audio form, so they're watching it rather than reading it. So I love that suggestion to just type in things, and always think of YouTube, because if we can think about it, it's probably there already, right? So yes, wonderful. Yeah. Those are great.
Don't reinvent the wheel.
Right? So wonderful suggestions. Thank you so much, Beverly, because this has been very, very useful. But for those of you who are watching, if you have any questions that you haven't already asked or haven't been answered yet, go ahead and make sure you put them on the comment section. We'll try to answer them while we're still on the air. Or like I said, after the show, we will be sure to answer your questions on the comment section. Remember that if we create a future program based on your comments or your questions, we'll be sure to give you credit for giving us the idea. So be sure to comment there. And speaking about that, let me ask you something, since we're almost at the end of the show. Olivia, do we have any comments or questions to answer at this point?
No, but I I did want to also give a shout out to Jennifer Rogers, who also gave us a like and appreciates all the helpful information that Beverly has been sharing with us this morning.
Awesome. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you very, very, very much. Well, again, thank you for those of you who have watched this. If you're watching this after the fact, don't forget to leave us your questions. But we're almost at the end of the show, but I didn't want to leave without thanking very much Beverly for bringing us this information, and of course, Olivia for putting it together. So thank you, Beverly, for joining us, for being here. So thank you, thank you, thank you. We hope to bring you back in the future again. So.
Anytime.
Awesome, wonderful. Also, I wanted to remind our audience that we are on the air every other week. So our next episode will be on August 11th, and we will be speaking to Lisa Bunn about safety resources and keeping our kids safe event that is coming up in our area, Tampa Bay area. So you can't miss it. Be sure to be here. All right. So anyway, that brings us to the end of the show. But before we go, I wanted to ask you for a little favor. As you know, this is the way that we can justify the time that it takes us to be. Go on the link that we're going to be posting and give us, your ratings and let us know how we're doing. If this information that we're bringing to you is important to you. Again, even if you've done it in the past, we need one done for every event that we have. So please, thank you from the bottom of our heart for doing that. All right. So thank you so much. Don't forget again, before we leave, thank you again to Beverly. And thank you for everyone for being here, for watching us. Don't forget to give us a like. Share this video on your page and with all those who could benefit from watching this type of content. And be sure to meet us here every other Friday around 10:45-ish, so we can share a cup of coffee with you as we spill the beans on important topics related to autism. But until then, we want to wish you some good vibes.
Good vibes and hot coffee.
And hot coffee. See you then, everyone. Bye-bye. Have a great weekend.